Um, I want you to understand framing versus facts. And some of you may or may not know, but I am a communications adjunct professor at Columbia College Chicago. That's actually how Fadi and I met years ago. He was one of my students. And one of the things I like to talk to my communications, my presentations skills kids about is the whole issue of framing. And I think it's really, 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 really important in this moment. And when I say this moment, after the 2 weeks of bad headlines for Joe Biden, and as we go deeper into the political season, when I talk about facts versus framing, I want you to understand the difference. And I also think it's important that you understand where some of us are extremely frustrated with the press. As you and I both know, or as when I say you and I, I'm talking about our listeners, but as our listeners know, one of the things that Fadi and I always go out of our way to talk about is how do we are frustrated with the press, but we don't ever want them to go away. We believe in the First Amendment. And I think our frustration, at least my frustration, rests in the whole issue of facts versus framing. So let me give you an example. It is a fact that Joe Biden's old. It is a fact that he's not the most eloquent speaker. It is a fact that he had a horrible debate. It is a fact that many people are concerned about electing someone of his age, or for that matter, of Trump's age. It is also a fact that sometimes there are Democrats who wish that we had someone younger. These are all facts. But what are also facts is Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. And again, I say that without any fear that I'm inciting violence. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist. Who's Donald Trump is a been convicted of business fraud or found liable of business fraud. Donald Trump has three felony indictments pending. We don't know if they'll ever come to fruition, but he's got three felony indictments pending. I can go on and on and on and on and on. Now, those are all facts, and the facts I give you about Joe Biden. Framing is when the media or people who are speaking go ahead and they take all the facts in front of them, because they're not lying. They take all the facts in front of them, and then they go ahead and they figure out what they're going to put their emphasis on, what they're going to emphasize, what they're going to share, and what they might not even acknowledge. So, for instance, for most people should understand, for the better part of the last 2 weeks since the debate, since June 27th, the national media, primarily the New York Times editorial pages, cable news, and Democratic insiders have been going on and on and on and on and on and on about Joe Biden's debate performance, questioning whether or not um, he had what it takes. There's been a lot of Democratic sources who have come out uh, anonymously and have cast doubt about how he needs to go. We can't win, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all you heard for 2 weeks. Again, I'm sure that these people are talking to the press. The press are not making up these anonymous quotes, but that's all they went with. The New York Times wrote two editorials on why Joe Biden needs to drop out of the race. At the exact same time they were doing that, they weren't going ahead and putting it in proper context and saying that Joe Biden is running against a convicted felon. They still, to this day, don't like to go ahead and talk about the fact that Donald Trump's a convicted felon. Uh, and just understand, convicted felons have a hard time getting a job at McDonald's, let alone serving as president of the United States. So one of the things that is really important to understand is the fact that the facts are not in dispute. There are people who are concerned about Joe Biden, his age, etc. That's all true. But what they choose to emphasize and what they choose to highlight, lift up, versus um, what else is going on is framing. It is a choice. Think about this. As I said, Donald Trump on May 30th became a convicted felon. And the entire time, they kept talking about how unusual it is for a former president, current presidential candidate, to go to jail. That is absolutely a fact. But you want to know what else is unusual? A person becoming a convicted felon and people normalizing the fact that a convicted felon can become a president. That is framing. That's how it works. So please, as we move forward, I want you guys to understand the difference between facts and framing. It's something I'm going to probably talk about regularly, but it's something I really, really think that we as a people need to really, really, really need to pay attention to.